Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell, and I'm joined by Amy Rivera and Amber Klear. And in this episode, we're excited to have back and welcome back Jami Ballentine Dolby is with us once again. Welcome back, Jami.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're with us. Each week, we come together to discuss the issues we face as women. We always like to start with what we're loving. So can you tell me what you're loving right now?
What I'm loving is all things St. Louis, and I'm loving St. Louis artists. I think I'm happy I just finished my art wall, and I'm highlighting some of my favorite artists and photographers. So I'm excited for that.
I'm excited too. I want to reach out to artists that would like to maybe share some of their works on my porch while we're still in lockdown and doing our Zoom episodes. I'd be happy to take a look. So Amber, what about you? What are you loving right now?
I am loving social media, and here's why. So I use social media intentionally to find out about stuff like art. So
Yeah.
I just found out that in June of 2021, Van Gogh there's this immersive experience where it's like bigger than life-size paintings, and it's in like Europe right now, and it's been a couple other places, and it's coming to Indianapolis. So it's the only spot in the US that I've seen it headed to, but I am absolutely excited that it is so close, because honestly, if it would have been in California, I would have figured out a way to go there. So I am super geeked for this immersive Van Gogh experience that is coming to Indianapolis in June of 2021.
That's going to be a fun little trip. Looking forward.
I'll send you guys the link. It is super cool.
I got a shotgun. So, Amy, what are you loving?
You know, like everyone else, I'm loving supporting local artists right now. I just purchased 2 pieces today, and I want to support them, and they're talented, and I just want to give right now. So same with everyone else.
Let us see one.
I'll let you see one.
Yeah.
I think let me grab one.
Oh, you put it up? I thought you still had it. Sorry.
Yeah, I think he put them away.
Okay.
Oh.
Get forward. Oh.
But I will provide a picture of mine.
Fantastic. So we're all talking about artists. What is that thing that made you say, hey, you know what? It's worth my dollar, and I want to invest in this, not only for me and the artist. What is that about it for you?
So he brought it back.
Oh, great. Let us see it. Oh.
Amazing.
That is cool.
Yeah, so, you know, as soon as my son saw it, he's like, oh, Black Panther. But when I see the art, I fell in love with it, but it spoke to me emotionally, and that's why I wanted to support them.
Mm-hmm. It pours into us. And we are feeling beings who are moved by everything from the universe to the ocean. So we certainly can understand it. It's unique about being a woman. We all saw it in the vice presidential debate and the now famous I'm speaking moment, or should I say moments. So many women can relate to the experience of working in a male-dominated environment and work environment. So ladies, let's talk. I want to ask Amber, when did you recognize it, your first occurrence, that you were really, well, you've shared with us in the past about that.
Yeah, every industry I've worked in has been male dominated. So between stand-up comedy, it's super male dominated. I ride motorcycles, super male dominated. I mean, from the moment that I entered the workforce, whether it was I was working at a newspaper that was mostly dudes, and then I went to, I've worked in a milking parlor in the farming industry, and that was all dudes. All men. I gotta get away from the dudes. I don't say it offensively. It's just that's the culture that I'm in, because I'm in a male-dominated environment. So
would you say then you, in your experience, you've come to adapt in order to exist in a male-dominated work environment, or what have you?
So that's a question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Because for me, did this make me a stronger person, or have I always been strong enough for this environment? And I think that for me, it's probably a little bit of both, because it does allow me to see a different side of things. So for example, when I was dating and I was working with all these men who were also dating, and they were worried about their beard stubble or a hair being out of place or an ear hair and their lack of confidence. And then I would go and talk to my girlfriends, and they had no idea that men felt the same way, that men were facing the exact same struggles. So it was kind of, I felt like an interpreter sometimes, because I would go and like discuss things at work and then discuss things with my girlfriends, and it led me to understand that there are a lot of gender differences, but there are a lot of similarities between the genders.
For sure. Jami, what do you know now that you wish you had when you first realized or worked in a male-dominated environment?
Well, I think my background is I worked in sports for years. I did sports radio, and my consulting and connection with people started with connecting athletes to different opportunities and entertainers to different opportunities in the St. Louis market. And I've always known that I had a voice. I think what I know now is my voice can never be muted. And so it just, sometimes you may need to pause it. Sometimes you may need to adjust the volume. But I think it's important that I know now that I always have had a voice. One of the things that I started out, I always had a strong advocate that was there for me and supported me, that had a larger voice in the sports industry. And so I was never alone. I think now I know I should have probably leaned on that instead of seeing it as, I don't need you to speak for me, and saying, thank you for speaking up for me. And so, but I've always made my mark and left a mark. And sometimes I think sometimes it's okay to just double back and get your thoughts together. And sometimes you can't read them on the spot, but you can read them a little bit later in life. So that part.
Love that. I love that. Amy, how has your behavior changed now?
So I went from a pageant queen to owning a boxing gym in my life. And like Amber and Jami said, I learned how to communicate with both parties, and how that I've always had a voice, but I had to learn how to use it in the correct fashion, in the correct manner. And owning a boxing gym taught me that fast. And but you also learn that you have to give respect to earn respect. And that's what I learned through that process.
I can't wait to hear more about both of those experiences. You think you know it, girl. You keep unfolding
Right.
and more incredible things. That's why I love these times that we take to talk. What would you tell your younger self, or in fact, this is kind of on our conversations that we have all the time, a younger woman in a male-dominated or the same industry that you may even be in? Jami?
I think always stand up for what's right. And sometimes before you are ready to respond and lash out, make sure you listen. And not everyone is out to hurt your feelings. I mean, I was 20, 21 years old going into an NFL locker room to get interviews. And I went in there expecting the worst and expecting to be disrespected. And so I just had this guard up. And I think there were instances where everything wasn't peaches and cream, but it wasn't all bad. And I really got an opportunity to just let my guard down and be myself and have a voice. Everything doesn't have to be what society tells us to expect.
Absolutely. So I think for me, it was shocking the amount of fear that I felt when I entered a room. It was 100 and some dudes, 100 and some men, and then me. And I had to position myself against the door because it was like my third day at work. And so here, this large group of men so the industry, it's the automotive, it was my third day in automotive. And obviously they don't have the best reputation. We talked about that on a previous episode. But I think that I just had to find is strength and show no fear. And now I found that having, like any workplace, having an ally that you know is a good person, is going to support you, that helps you have a voice. So for me, there's a man that I work with that he is all about his wife and his daughter, and he's just a good person. And so I felt like that's where my strength was coming from. That's where I can do anything because I know that he's on my side. But to be honest, that's in any workplace. If you have someone who is supportive, that is going to yell with you or silence the crowd for you so your voice can be heard, I think that's super important. And I think
That'd be a
if we
good
give men a
recommendation.
chance, they do want us there.
Yeah, give people a chance, as well as taking a deeper and longer look in the spaces that you may not have even ventured. Amy, your younger self needs to know what?
Be fearless and tune out that noise, because we all said we were fearful, but we didn't understand why we were so fearful in our own selves until we got into that position and then saw that there was no reason to be that fearful. So just,
and they're afraid of us too. Like they're afraid of what we bring to the table.
And at the end of the day, I was treated poorly by both men and women in different situations. So, you know, treat others how you want to be treated, but be fearless.
Yeah.
A takeaway I'm getting from this definitely is the energy that you initiate will be the energy that you'll receive as well. So it does make a difference. Should we be on guard in male dominated environments? Should we be, you know, we're often accused of over feminizing or over masculine work attitudes and behaviors. Is there a sweet spot? Oh, I got you wiggling, Amber.
So I'll bring up a unique perspective, because at one point I worked with a team of 10 males. And for me, it wasn't the males that were the problem. I specifically would seek out their girlfriends and their wives and try to friend them, because I was spending more time with their husbands and boyfriends than they were. And I didn't want them to see me as a threat. And so for me, it was really conflicting when we would have work holiday parties and people would bring their spouses, because I want to be over here with the women, but all my coworkers are men and they're over here. So it's like, which side, where do I stand? And then it was really important for me not to, I made a point to not be fraternizing with any of my coworkers alone outside of work, so that I didn't accidentally set a reputation that I didn't want. And that has saved me, I think, in more situations. But on the flip side, males get to hang out all the time together and they don't get accused of anything. And that kind of sucks. I want to hang out too.
I bet, right. And you know, that's kind of a rough spot to be in. See, when we were kids, I was just a tomboy and it was no big thing. But when it becomes a work environment and significant others, as well as sexual attraction, then we've got a whole other set of circumstances to have to address. And I've dealt with the harassment on the job as well as the support, but the competition, it's kind of rough period in the workplace. And if I were to tell my younger self anything, I would say go in confidently and surely in yourself, and what you go in with needs to be as true to who you are, and with the energy, just don't hold back.
And your intentions. Know your intentions. Be intentional.
Fight for it and try to recover and then justify and speak when you can come in. That's why I love new environments and new collaborations, because I can go ahead and establish it early and upfront. It's even a part of why I wear my head wrap a lot, because a lot of that negative energy is dealt with just wearing a crown. You know, it'll be warded off in the beginning, or it'll be an insulation to that negative vibe lots of times. So
I have to get me a wrap.
Okay. You know,
I
even-
know.
Listen,
even
I
physically.
what you say or think about me is not my issue. That's why
Exactly.
I'm never worried about who I am in a male-dominated field because I know what type of woman I am. And it's not my concern with everybody else. When you realize that my connections and my collaborations are helping your spouse or your partner elevate their career, then you'll simmer down and be okay with it. But what other people think about me is not my concern. But I'm gonna have to give me a wrap to just
Oh,
get
yeah.
it all off now.
And it reminds me to hold my head up no matter what they say about me. And we're talking about, we're speaking on these corporate environments, but when we talk about in places where women are still breaking ground, like in military, in the sciences, we often we see report after report where their lack of representation or lack of women in the space is dangerous to them. We're speaking a lot of office and corporate, maybe even retail environments where a lot of strides have been made, but there are lots of places where women are still trying to break through and are fewer involved and represented in these environments, and they are risking their safety and help and are still in dangerous situations. And a young woman in St. Louis is changing her college campus by addressing the real issue of sexual assault. We'll talk about her new program when we come back. Let's talk.
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool.
To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with dachshund breeding.
Why do you not get me?
I do. This is what it feels like for kids with learning and attention issues. Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Jade Harrell, here with Amber Klear, Amy Rivera, and Jami Ballentine Dolby. We are also happy to welcome a guest to this episode. Elle Aronson is founder and chairperson of SAM, a sexual assault hotline for SLU students, St. Louis University. Welcome, Elle. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me.
So let's talk about SAM. Tell us what it is and why you created it.
So SAM is a sexual assault hotline for SLU students. It is a completely confidential and non-binding way that SLU students can call following an assault or any questionable sexual violent behavior, and they can just talk, and we can give varieties of resources and as well as peer-to-peer help.
Fantastic. When you have an initiative like that, it is prompted from an event or series of events. If you needed to address something so much that it was a problem, then what can you tell us about what was going on at SLU?
So there happens to be a culture of sexual violence at SLU, and there's honestly limited resources in what students can do. SAM kind of steps in there as a additional resource. We like to think of ourselves as just another link in the chain of resources that SLU students have. We never want to step on the toes of the Title IX office or the DPS department, who is our public safety area, or counseling services. We just want to be another way that survivors can get help and get support.
Who makes up the we?
SAM is comprised of around 84 members right now.
And growing, right?
Oh, every day. We got a couple applications yesterday. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. So what has
lot.
been your experience that brought you to this work and commitment?
So I actually transferred into SLU. When I came to SLU, I found out that a certain individual who I had experience with in high school and who had assaulted me, I realized that he went to SLU. And during my first year here, I was a mess. And I wore baggy clothes everywhere. I wore baseball hats when I would leave my dorm. I wouldn't go to parties because I knew he was in a frat. I never really connected with classmates. It was just a lot of individual workings that a 19-year-old really shouldn't have to go through. Yeah. And the Title IX office really couldn't do anything for my case because everything happened years ago, and neither myself nor this particular individual was a student at the time. So they could offer me counseling resources, but really nothing else. And I didn't find that very helpful. And after talking to a few friends that also went to SLU that also had a similar experience, it wasn't helpful for them either.
Sure.
So
along your journey of recovery, I could see how that could be incredibly challenging to address. I'm going to open it up for everybody else to ask some questions too, but what does SAM stand for?
That actually is a very common question, and it doesn't stand for anything. It is just a gender neutral name that we thought would be best for something like this, because there's a huge misconception that sexual assault only happens to women, and that is not the case at all. It happens to women, men, people in the queer community, people in other minority factors. It's not just white women, and that is a huge misconception, and we kind of wanted to start taking that down with the name as just a gender neutral name that people can identify us as.
And the first thing you want them to identify when they're made aware, hey, SAM exists, you want them to identify this is a place for, what's the first thing you want to come to mind for them?
Confidential. That is something that is huge, and it was a huge hurdle that we had to go through within the administration itself. So we are not deemed responsible employees of the university, so we don't have to make a report to Title IX every time we get a call. That was a huge issue that we had to overcome. It involved a lot of lawyers and a lot of preparing for our case, if that makes sense, to make us non-responsible employees.
So first and foremost, kudos to you, like major props for using something that is so painful and traumatic to empower yourself and help others. Like, mad props to you. What are some of your goals for the future with SAM?
So actually, one of our core members came up with this idea that we can expand the organization to other campuses around the country. So SAM is not SLU's sexual assault hotline. It just happens to operate on SLU's campus. So the idea would be that other universities would follow the handbook and the guidelines that we wrote, and they would just implement it in their own university. So creating their own resources. And if, the university happens to be in New York, then offering, New York hospitals and things like that. So kind of taking the same idea and then implementing it other places and having, SAM at NYU or SAM at Mizzou, and kind of creating a central place and then divvying that up everywhere.
So you're putting, go ahead, JB.
I know you have dozens of members. What does a member look like for SAM, and what would be the role of a member? Because I think some people think they have to have a certain either experience or a certain expertise to work and support this field. But can you share with us what it's like to support SAM in different ways?
Yes, absolutely. So SAM comprises of a lot of members, and it is not always in someone's best interest to be the one manning the hotline and to be the one answering calls and hearing all of these traumatic stories. So we have a 3-tiered system. Our first tier is obviously the hotline operators. These are the people that answer the phones and everything like that. Then we have our recruitment tier, and they get the word out about SAM. They create events around campus and around the St. Louis area that can get our number out. And get more volunteers, things like that. And then we have our finance tier that manages our budget, writes grant applications, everything like that. And then from the 3 tiers, we have core members from each tier that the other members communicate with them with. Everyone does sign a confidentiality sheet and a conduct release form, and then hotline operators sign a contract as well. So you, no matter any experience or any gender or sexual orientation or whatever it may be, you can still be involved in SAM in any sort of capacity.
What a great collaborator question that was, Jami.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, how does the St. Louis community support you? Because we're not on SLU's campus, but what's a way that we can support you in where we are those viewers of STL TV? How can we support SAM by, is it sharing what you do? Is it donations? Is it resources? What is it that you need for us to make sure that SAM really does expand to other college campuses across our region and beyond?
It's actually all of what you just said. Providing resources so we can, give our callers adequate ways to get more help. It is funding. So our funding is kind of fluctuating all the time, and it depends on what we need.
Are you self-funding right now?
We are getting a particular amount of money from the wellness department at SLU, and then we continuously apply for grants, and we get a few of those as well. So it really just depends on, how generous people are, if that makes sense. We do get funding. Sorry?
Apologies, I spoke too soon, but I wanted to just say, I feel like what you all are doing is very generous of your time, of your care for your other community members, as well as for those that are outside of your community, something that can be replicated on other campuses. What a triumph that is for you all.
Yeah. What a positive impact you're having on the whole community.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we got a chance to meet you. SAM is a free, private, anonymous, and confidential way for survivors of sexual assault to discuss their stories and seek help, which is unlike any resource at the university and was created by these amazing young people, including you. Thank you for being with us. And thank you everybody else for watching Let's Talk. And you can catch new episodes every Tuesday. Comment, let us know what you are talking about so you can join the conversation. And make sure you follow STL TV on social media. And we will see you next week. Bye, ladies.